Hello, everyone, and welcome to the tastebetter.com video newsletter for Monday, January 25th, 2010. Really excited to have you on here. And, I hope last week went really well for you because it was awesome for me. Our kitchen's almost done. If you were on office hours last week, you got a preview of the backsplash. So really looking forward to doing something with cooking videos soon. And, probably the best thing I did last week was spend a day hanging out with a 3-year-old. And you can learn a lot from a 3-year-old, but I don't have any really big lessons from that I can share with you right now. Anyway, hope you had a great week. And I want to welcome our new subscribers. This is to the email version of the newsletter. If you go to tastebetter.com/newsletter, you get an email every Monday with the kinds of stuff that we're talking about in these videos. So it's a good way to get reminded. And I want to welcome Lisa, Penny, Tom, and Jackie to the list. And, even if you're new or, if you've been around for a while, let me know what you think. You can get a hold of me if you go to jason@tastebetter.com. You can email me directly. Or if you get the emails, just hit reply. Because when new subscribers, when they sign up, they can tell me what they want to learn. But if you've been on for a while, maybe your ideas have changed, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube and you've got some ideas, please let me know so we can focus our work and make sure we're making the most of our time together. This week, we are going to talk about burnout. I did a post about this last week, like I said I would, and it wasn't the one I wanted, so we're going to go into overtime here in the newsletter. Also, a little historical perspective for you, more about office hours. This is the last time I'm going to be talking about them as a heading in the list, so you want to pay attention. And then we're going to go into some of what you missed last week and what's coming up. So, really excited to get into this burnout stuff. Last week, I said I was going to do a post about activist burnout, and I did. But as I started to write it, it turned out not to be the post that I thought I was going to write. It seemed like there was a bunch of stuff that needed to be said before I could even get to what I was hoping to say, and then it opened up a whole bunch of more doors. And the post that I had in mind sounded a lot better in my head than it looked on the screen. So I thought I'd take advantage of the fact that the newsletter's got audio and video formats, and I want to deliver the concepts this way, because speaking it just resonated better for me, and maybe it will for you. Try them different ways and see what you think. So here we go. This week, we're going to talk about what I think, honestly, is the number one reason that activists burn out. And, even if you don't consider yourself an activist, your very existence in the face of a whole civilization that does things differently than you do is a form of activism in itself. So please pay attention to this, because from a burnout perspective, what you're doing on a daily basis might be the most important type of activism at all. And if you burn out of that, that means you fall back to the normal way of doing things, and we lose you possibly forever. So really want to focus on this week. Because when people go against the grain and do things differently, there's a word that comes to mind. Fighting. We're fighting to raise awareness. We're fighting to get our voices heard. And we're even fighting to get a sandwich at the local deli that doesn't get made with a knife covered in mayonnaise. And not only are we fighting, but this is a fight that's expected to go on for a really, really long time, if not our whole lives. Now, you might be thinking that I'm going to say something like, well, get that word fighting out of your head and you're going to be happier and more effective. But I'm not. Fighting is a really good word. It pretty accurately reflects what we're doing. But where activists and, vegans in general get messed up, in my opinion, is when they associate other words with words like fighting. And when you think about really long fights, it's hard not to think of a war. So there's going to be some war metaphors here, because in a war, you've got the heroic soldier. I'm going to apologize to women reading this, because I'm going to be using this whole talk with a masculine pronoun, but that's mostly because I'm a guy and it's easier for me to channel that. But definitely, women can be and are heroic soldiers, and I'm not trying to glorify war here either. So just want to get that out of the way to save a couple of emails from getting written. But think about the heroic soldier. He's alone. He's a long way from home. He's left his family behind. In his darkest hours, the best he can hope for is that his name gets to go up on a wall honoring the dead who sacrificed their lives for freedom. Honestly, he's struggling just to keep it together, to take that hill, to simply endure. And, there's a saying, war is hell, right? So think about those words that we just used. Alone, struggle, sacrifice. I'm going to learn how to use YouTube or PowerPoint here. Survival and hell. These are all words that commonly get associated with fighting that I think really put the focus on the wrong things. And the other thing about it is that wars, if we're going to go with the war thing, wars generally end. With veganism, you hope for some notable victories and, that the world's going to be a better overall place than it was before you started. But there's no end to the tour of duty for you. There's no end game. You're going to keep doing what you're doing for a really, really long time. And there's no point that you can look forward to where you're going to be able to say, all right, we're done here, let's go home. It might sound a little silly, but honestly, I've met activists at various stages of their fights, and those are the best words I can find to describe the things in their reality: alone, struggle, sacrifice, survival. And yeah, when you live that like that long enough, hell. In that context, is it any wonder that people get less effective over time? That they get bitter, cynical, and resentful? They eventually give up, and instead of looking back on the past however many years as some of the best work they've done in their lives, they think they just wasted their time with the whole thing? Instead of all these words that I just want to get this slide off the screen, because let's think about some of the other words we can associate with a long fight. How about winning? Maybe not for your generation, sure, but someday, absolutely. And there's lots of things to celebrate in the meantime. There's lots of hills to be won, if I can keep the war analogy going. Or hey, how about pride, honor, and integrity, if I can really work the war angle and swipe a little from the Marines for a second? How about having something the other side wants so badly that they'll try and crush you to get at it? I'm not being over the top here. As vegans promoting a plant-based diet to others, there's a number of industries that'd be seriously threatened if everybody took up the cause. And remember Bob and Barry we talked about last week? They would love to see you fail. And finally, what about the knowledge that gives you that confidence, that look in your eye, that spring in your step that says, I'm doing things differently, it's working, and I'm not leaving? If activism is a fight, we've got one thing on our side that's going to make all the difference. The other side, they know deep down that we're the ones in the right. And long term, you simply cannot hold a position where you're wrong. You can't do that in the long term. And I believe this 100%. If veganism was easier, everybody would be doing what we do. And it is getting easier every day. But in the meantime, it's a fight. And remember, it's up to you to decide what kind of fighter you're going to be. And thinking about winning, integrity, and being on the right team is going to carry you a lot farther than you're thinking about sacrifices that you've made and the struggles you've endured. So please think about that and let me know what you think. You can just put a comment if you're watching this on YouTube, or you can get a hold of me directly, jason@tastebetter.com. Really looking forward to hearing what you think. Next up, speaking of progress, I've got a quote that I want to read from a book that doesn't really have a lot to do with activism in general, but it's called Fordlandia by Greg Grandin. It's about Henry Ford's attempt to build a rubber plantation in Brazil. And this is one of those books that doesn't have anything to do with veganism, but, my eyes go right to the parts that do, no matter how much I need to twist things in my head to make that connection. In this case, it was a passing reference to vegetarianism. Ford was against World War I. At one point, he'd arranged for a boat to go to Europe to protest the thing. And as for who else was on the boat, here's a quote. Most of the country's prominent liberal internationalist, intellectuals, and religious leaders respectfully declined, and that led Ford with an odd and volatile assortment of lesser-known dissenters, vegetarians, socialists, pacifists, and suffragists as companions. Don't you think it's interesting that 200 years ago there wasn't even a name for how we eat, and 100 years ago we were a fringe group that was loosely associated with pacifism and socialism, and now we've got a section to ourselves in major grocery stores? It wasn't that long ago that if you wanted to cook tofu, you had to make it yourself. And, when I look at what's starting to happen with vegan cheeses or different coconut milk products that are entering a market that used to be exclusive to dairy, that version of me even 10 years ago must think we live in a fantasy land that rivals the jetpack future we were promised. And, I've been reading a lot about history, and I'm going to get back to more things like that because I think that it's important to pay attention to struggles in the past so we can understand how better to frame the struggles that we've got going on. Sorry to use that struggle word, but future victories, how's that? If you want to read more about Fordlandia, you can go to my personal blog, jasondoucette.ca. I've got a bit more words on that there. Next up, very, very quickly, we do office hours, which is like a live version of this where you see my face in a live stream and we talk through things. This week, there is a notification list you can sign up to with this URL here, and you can go and sign up for a mailing list. We'll send you a mail before so you remember that it's going to happen, and we'll send you a mail afterwards with a link to the recording in case you were too busy to miss it. Please, please, please check that out. Very quickly, I just want to go into what's coming up this week and what's going on. Taste Better, we're talking about activism and burnout a little more. Did another post this morning. Gonna have something else up on Wednesday. Vegan porn, really excited. Got a voice of again internally. Having a little fun, just talking about some goofy stories in the news. Veganporn.com is that one. There's gonna be another porncast this week on Tuesday, and then some more stuff through the week. Barnivore, our vegan alcohol page at barnivore.com, is continuing to just go. We're going to put some more filters in this week to make it more usable. And spawnbetter.com, our parenting site. I don't honestly know what's happening this week, but there's going to be something going on there. I'm just waiting for a few stars to align on that. So very, very quickly, because I'm running out of time, thanks so much for subscribing to this thing in YouTube. If you have, if you haven't, please do. Please sign up for the newsletter. And here are some other ways to get a hold of me. I will see you next week. Thanks so, so much. We'll talk to you soon.